Hello, and welcome to another installment of The Persistent Rumor. I am Chocolate Yoddah, spelled Yoddah, because film studios are litigious. And with me, as always, is my heterosexual life mate, Chancleta.
Hello, world. It is Chancleta.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm a little fucking fired up.
Happy hump day, baby. It's the end of the month. It's the end of the fiscal quarter at work. I mean, it's just nice.
You are making me sick with your tech talk. I hate it.
It's just fiscal. It's fiscal.
Fiscal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, man, I hope somebody knows what that reference is.
Leave your comments down below and let us know if you know where that's from. Yeah, that's great.
Right.
Yeah, we're overdue for that movie, too.
That's right. So, oh, man. So what I'm fired up about, I was actually having dinner earlier with my lady, and I got on a fucking rant about America, and it was just like I was saying that I'm just fucking sick of this whole Make America Great Again mythology.
Yeah.
Because, of course, grammatically, that means that America's not great now, and also America was great at some point. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to figure out what that point was. When was America great? If it even was. And if it wasn't, what is it that people are fucking talking about? Like, do you have any idea about that?
Well, I think perception is reality. And for some people, there was a time where you could just, go on about your day and hate a black man all you want and there were no repercussions. And maybe that's the greatness that people that are trying to, recover, you know what I mean? That Jim Crow era that, maybe for some even slavery, maybe that's when America was great. I don't really know what people mean by making America great or even again, but to me, for many people, America was never great, Mm-hmm. Listen, the country has had achievements, absolutely. We've have come a long way in the industrial revolution, et cetera. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's been great for the common man, right? It mm-hmm. certainly has been great for some people, but I don't think that it is great if it's not great for everyone. And so that's really right. where the conflict of ideas come about, and that's not something that people are really talking about. This whole idea of making America great again suggests that at some point, whatever point they were talking about, that's when it was great. And a lot of times it's just nostalgia. It's just like when, because like everybody thinks like, oh, the good old days when you were a kid. Of course, it was the good old days when you were a kid because you had no responsibilities. You got to run around and play and do whatever the hell it was. The world seemed amazing at the time.
You didn't need money. You didn't need ID. You didn't need keys. You got driven everywhere. You got fed all the time.
Are you kidding me?
That was pretty fucking great.
Yeah. It's amazing when you get to wake up and it's like breakfast is ready. Okay, go to school and you come home and it's like, you want a snack? Of course it's amazing. And it's like, and sometimes it's like, those are conflict, like people don't realize that that's really what was great about it. It's that you were a kid,
Right.
So,
I mean, even beyond that, let's say, as an adult, mm-hmm. I think you were onto something. I think if you're a white person in America, then it probably was always great to a certain extent, especially if you're like middle class and above.
Sure.
It's never been great for anyone poor under any circumstances. But as Chris Rock used to say, even someone living under a trailer park wouldn't trade places with me, and I'm rich. Mm-hmm. And that's how good it is to be white in America.
Right.
Right. So, I tend to think along those lines also, because looking back through history, and there's a part of history that I never hear white people talking about, and it's because it's not in the history books, not at least not in the history books that are taught in schools. Like, typically speaking, it's all propaganda and sound bites. And of course, the history was written by the ruling class.
Indeed.
So what don't people know about, the beginnings of America? They don't know necessarily that slavery started in 1619 when a boat showed up with slaves from Africa in Jonestown, Virginia, or was it Jamestown, Virginia?
Yeah.
And they don't know about the 3/5 compromise that's in the
Constitution.
It's either the Constitution or one of the amendments, whatever, that basically states that black people
are 3/5 of a human.
3/5 of a human, right? And there was a reason for that, and it was actually the North trying to control the South, because what the North was saying basically is that if we let these count these slaves, we're fucked, right? Because since everything was set up as representative government, everything was based on population size, right?
Right.
So now you have a situation where the North is trying to say, hey, let's make sure that we don't count these people fully, and that will balance the scales. But unfortunately, that just perpetuates the perception that blacks aren't people, right? They also don't know that during the Revolution, soldiers were not paid. They were promised payment, but essentially America decided to just fuck these people over. So, we have had no regard for soldiers from the beginning. Okay. And what happened is these soldiers decided, like, oh, you're not going to pay us? Well, watch this. And they started to rebel against the government, which, by the way, is where the Second Amendment comes from. Okay, it has nothing to do with everybody should own guns, as much as they want and do whatever they want. No, it was really the paranoia that James Madison hinted at when he said that the opulent minority is to be protected by the poor majority by the government. That's what he felt the role of the government was like, hey, protect my kind.
Yeah.
Right. That's what he was saying. We're the ruling class. We have all the money. They have all the jealousy, and they're the ones that are likely to revolt and try to take my shit. So government, I need you to protect me. And if that means setting up a well-armed militia, then that's what we're going to do. So this Second Amendment fucking fantasizing that people talk about, it's mostly horseshit. It mostly has nothing to do with what they think it's about. It's really just about wealthy white people protecting themselves from everybody else, especially the motherfuckers that they just had in chains that they're a little nervous about.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. And what I want to know is what part of that is great. Try to point out a 20-year period where everything was cool in America. Or, I'll give you more latitude. Try to point out a 10-year period or even a 5-year period where everything was cool for the majority of people in America. That doesn't exist as far as I can tell. All these, the run up to the Roaring '20s was a bunch of bank collapses that were orchestrated by J.P. Morgan. Then you have the Roaring '20s, where all sorts of mayhem was going on, and then you have the Great Depression, and then you have and right before the Great Depression was World War I, and then after the Great Depression was World War II. And then there was the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and blah, 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 blah down the line. So I want to know, I know for sure, if I remember correctly, there has not been a 20-year period where there have been no wars. But I want to know if there was a time that people think of, and please send me comments. Let me know your thoughts. I'm interested to know the perception that you have of America. Like when was a time where everything was good for the majority of people in America, not just the elites, not just the oppressive class, not just the financially ruling class, not just the government class, like the average person in America. When was that a great time? When was America great and served the majority of people in America? Because I haven't found it. And I'm not a historian, but I try to read up on history. I try to read the history that's taught outside of American classrooms, because that history lesson is mostly bull. It's mostly propaganda, just with great sound bites. Oh I have one regret that I have but one life to give for my country. All that kind of, and it all sounds great in history books, and it makes your chest swell with pride, and you hold your hand over your heart and pledge allegiance and all that. So I understand how deep the propaganda goes, but I want to go outside of that. I want to go to like the Howard Zinn type of American story where he pulls back the curtains on what America really has always been about. And he goes back to 1492. And it's and really, and you could even pick that as the year you start at 1492. Tell me all about this great period that existed in America that everyone wants to get back to. And I put everyone in quotes, of course.
The only time that I've heard that when things were the best that they were was during FDR's run, the New Deal era,
Right. But that for white people that was great,
exactly,
but not for blacks.
Exactly. And that's where it kind of takes a dive there, because it wasn't good for everyone. It was just like, it seemed like it was just really good for white folks. And maybe that's the era that they were trying to get back. But if that is the case and you're trying to get that back, it's like the way that Republicans are going about it now, it's not that. That's not what you're going to get if that's what you're trying to obtain. Right? Like, because everything back then was about regulation. It was about, protecting the citizens, protecting the workers, like the government working for the people. Right? That was a time when it was like, okay, yeah, unions were very favorable. Protecting the consumer was very favorable, and controlling monopolies, things like that. So a lot of things were put into place to remediate the problems of the past, the things that caused the Great Depression, the things that caused a lot of woes in as far as finance is concerned in society. But the way that, so if that's the moment that you were trying to capture, I don't see how you're going to achieve that with everything that the current Republicans are trying to push, because it just doesn't make sense. So then the only thing that I can say is, based on the agenda that the Republicans are trying to push, the only thing that I can say that is the era that you're trying to recapture is that of slavery or more oppression. Yeah. Because that's the only thing that makes sense to
me. Like, how much time in your school experience was given to talking about the Jim Crow era of America, where there were black codes, and black people were getting thrown in jail just for being black on a sunny day, basically.
Yeah.
I don't remember much discussion on that. Like people like to talk about the 13th Amendment making slaves free. And I'm like, no, first of all, you're stupid because you weren't paying attention in history class. It was the Emancipation Proclamation that made them free, but their freedom didn't last long.
Right.
Like that whole thing of Juneteenth, that was literally 6 months before, like 5 or 6 months before the 13th Amendment was ratified, which made slavery legal again if you were incarcerated.
Right.
And like all good businesses, and that's what prison is, then you need customers. And so what they do, they made black codes so that so many things that black people did became illegal. And then you could throw them in jail, and now the jail has another source of free labor.
Right.
People right now don't realize very often when they get a solicitation by phone, that telemarketer is calling from a prison. Yeah. They don't know that some of the goods that they buy are made by prisoners, and it's essentially slave labor.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to say essentially. I mean, really, it is slave labor.
It's exactly what it is.
People nothing. Yeah. And so what is this? Where is the greatness in America? Even like, what is America good at? What? And I know cynically my answer is usually propaganda, but in reality, like, is America number one in anything that's a good category?
No, that's a good category. No, right now we really don't read the military. Yeah, you can say that we're the strongest military, but it's really up to you whether
it just means we can oppress a lot of people.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's not the military. Put it to you this way: we're looking at a $750 billion budget. How quickly did they breach the Capitol building on January 6, 2021?
Yeah, right.
All right. So where's all that money going? Where is the protection that you speak of with all these weapons?
So the problem that I have, and it's that, like, we spend an obscene amount of money on on our military budget, yet many veterans aren't taken care of, right?
Right.
We have a lot of issues with PTSD, veterans that have PTSD issues, and then they don't get any help. We have a lot of people that can't even get treated well, as far as the medicine they need or whatever it is, and and we have homeless veterans, etc. That's a shame, right?
That's crazy. I mean, and traumatic brain injuries. Like, we know that the wars in the Middle East, over the past 18 years, have created more traumatic brain injuries than ever before. And these people are coming home, and they've got to fight for every bit of care that they get, and it's just not a good look. These are the people that we love to prop up on Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but it's all lip service, as far as I could tell. Like, how are you really treating veterans? It's actually like it, and it's such a shame, and it's such a black mark on the mythology of America, because it's like, yeah, wave your flags, put your hand over your heart, stand at parades and all this. But aside from campaigns and rhetoric, what are we actually doing for veterans?
Listen,
I can't see anything.
It's like sometimes if you go to a funeral, you'll see somebody, like, crying and, doing this all theatrics, just like, how you ever seen somebody who's like overly like compensating for, I don't know why. And sometimes it just seems that, they're really distraught, but, some people do it for show, and it's because you feel guilty.
Every one of my relatives at every funeral I've ever seen them at, just wailing and carrying on. It's like, come on, man, they were in their 80s. It ain't a tragedy.
Yeah, they were in their 80s. You never really visited them. You never really had a strong relationship. Whatever the case is, it's like, don't. That's your guilt because you didn't spend enough time with them, or because you whatever it is. But that's the same thing that the U.S. government does when it comes to veterans. It's like, oh, look, we're doing a really nice day for you. And, oh, look at this Memorial Day, look at this Labor Day, whatever it is. It's like, we try to, wave a flag and, pop some confetti or something like that for the veterans. And it's like, get them the help that they need, man. You sent these guys out when they were 18 to go to fight a war that you shouldn't even started to begin with. You spend so much money that, like, literally the next 10 countries, that's in order of how much they spend, you spend more than them combined, and like 8 of those 10 are your allies. Like, you're doing something wrong. You have no problem spending $30 billion on a plane that'll fly super fast but can't unless it's raining, right? Right? Like, and it's
you're referring to the F-35 Raptor and the F-22 Raptor, I guess.
Yeah.
And I have been saying for years that plane is basically a giveaway to government contractors.
Yeah.
Right. It's impressive on paper.
Yeah.
Some of the technology in that plane is absolutely amazing, but as you say, once it starts raining, which, as I understand it, happens about half the time, you're pretty well fucked.
Right. And you can't really, like, you don't have timeouts in war. right? Like you don't have a rain delay that you can just be like, all right, well,
Right.
we'll just catch back
Right.
up with you guys when it's, once the rain stops, it's going down, son. Like you can't, like
Right.
what's that about? But
Like a flag football game at the park.
right.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do that right here or right down here. There's other videos that you can watch. And if you'd like to check out some uncensored content, you can check us out on patreon.com/thepersistentrumor. Thanks a lot again. Talk to you soon.